Assalamualaikum everyone. We're back with another video. Today we have our guest speaker with us, Mahdin Javed. Mahdin, please introduce yourself.
Assalamualaikum everyone. As Ramesh already told you, my name is Mahdin Javed. I am currently studying in Supernova School and I'm in A2 right now. I currently take 7 subjects in A2 and took 11 in IGCSE O-levels. Uh, I've taken more or less all the sciences. Inshallah, in the future, I want to do something regarding the sciences, but I'm keeping my options open. Other than that, I have a lot of hobbies. I love to read, as you can probably tell from my background.
Exactly.
And I love to write. I have my own blog site, if you want to check that out. Apart from that, I'm very active and engaged in sports. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, perfect. तो मादिन अभी पहले chemistry की बात कर लेते हैं. तो do you want to tell us what exactly do you study chemistry में? थोड़ा सा, I mean it's kind of क्या कहूँ, explanatory, but either ways.
Okay. Basically, chemistry is the study of how things in our world interact with each other. It's the study of their interactions. For chemistry, you generally have about 14 topics, but they're further subdivided. You have your particulate nature of matter, experimental techniques, atoms, elements, compounds, chemical energetics, reactions, acid, bases, salts, periodic table, carbonates, and organic chemistry. However, these are subdivided into different topics, and as with all sciences, it is a difficult subject. But if you prepare well, you can aim for an A star. For example, organic chemistry, it's further broken down into, you have your alkanes, alkenes, alcohols, carboxylic acids. Experimental techniques mostly relates to your ATP part of the paper, and atoms, elements, and compounds forms the basis of your understanding. Acids, bases, and salt is another major chapter that has further subdivisions as well. You can have questions regarding the formation of acids, whether an acid-base reaction will take place, whether you should have an acid-metal reaction, and what the products are.
Okay. I have a personal question. How difficult do you think chemistry is for O-level students? Like students who study on the weekends, not on weekdays, who are like the average student. उनके लिए कितनी मुश्किल out of 10?
Out of 10, I would say that it's a solid 7 or 8. 8 out of 10. It's a very difficult subject. And like all sciences, it has a very conceptual nature. If you can't grasp the concept, you're doomed, or rather, you will struggle. Because in IGCSE O-levels, compared to our own matriculation system, it's not you just memorize everything and then regurgitate on the paper. You have to understand it. So if you don't have that understanding, if you don't have that conceptual awareness, then you will struggle a lot.
Exactly, and it demands a lot of attention as well. मतलब खाली weekends पे sometimes नहीं चलता.
Yeah. You have to be studying throughout the week.
हाँ. Okay.
Okay.
So, next question.
A little insight into the syllabus, please.
हो गया
like,
ना? Syllabus हो गया.
Yeah,
syllabus?
if you want to know, the syllabus code is 0620 for IGCSE. And like I said, it has 14 topics in the content overview if you open up the syllabus guide. But each of them is further subdivided into many other topics. For example, organic has 4 main components: alkanes, alkenes, alcohols, carboxylic acids. As I mentioned earlier, atoms, elements, and compounds form the basis of your understanding. And acids, bases, and salt is a very major chapter, which you have to pay especially very key attention, because that's where a lot of questions come from.
Exactly. तो अच्छा मादीन एक और चीज बताएं, IGCSE और O levels वाला जो normal GCE वाला है, उसमें कोई फर्क है?
Not really. For IGCSE and O levels, in the sciences category especially, there are very minor differences, but overall, on the whole, next to no differences. If you open up the past papers, you will find maybe one question like that to one part that's much more 1-2 marks in about 5 years worth of past papers. You'll barely find 3 1-mark parts like this. So there's next to no difference. Obviously, if you open up the syllabus guide, they'll say that, oh, this is different, that is different. but 99.9% of the syllabus is the same.
So yeah, perfect. So walk us through the paper pattern.
Okay. If you look at the syllabus guide, there are 6 main paper components. Obviously, you just have to give 3, but to sum them up, paper 1 and paper 2 are your MCQ papers, paper 3 and paper 4 are your theory papers, and paper 5 is practical, paper 6 is alternate to practical. Most students in Pakistan take papers 2, 4, and 6. Obviously, the second number 2, 4 are the harder versions known as the extended syllabus, which is usually considered what is most appropriate. After that, you have the code attached, like for example, 2-1, 2-2, 2-3, 2-1 being the easiest, 2-3 being the hardest. Pakistan takes 2-2, which is in between. So MCQ, you have 40 questions, 45 minutes. Theory, it can range anywhere from about 5 to 6 questions. You have about an hour, 15 minutes, hour and a half, sorry. And for ATP, you have about 1 hour for about 2-3 questions tops. In that, MCQs are your free marks. If you've prepared well, if you studied enough, if you know your syllabus content, and you have a strong grasp of its understanding, then it's, you could say, a free 40 marks and 3 marks in the ATP as well. Because about 10% of your syllabus is ATP, 9% of it is theory. And of that 90%, about 87%, I would say, relates back to your ATP. So again, 3 marks. MCQ, your options are either A, correct, B, incorrect, C, incorrect, D, incorrect, because you can easily tell. In A levels, it's it's a whole different story. But in O levels, at the very least, you can easily tell which option is correct and which option is incorrect.
Okay, so who do you think should study this subject? Like, what kind of interest do you have to study chemistry? Not computer science.
Of course, I can't answer for the field of computer science since I never had an interest in it. But in my personal opinion, I believe that those who want to study chemistry or want to know how things interact, or say, for example, they just saw CSI or any show and they're like, let me feel like I'm a scientist. I want to react, for example, table salt with water, see what happens. Anybody who has an interest in this can study it. If you want to take up sciences in the future, sure, go ahead. If you want to take up something else in the future, but you still want to study the subject, just look through it. Think, this might be interesting, go ahead. But again, I would recommend that those who don't want to study, don't study it, because don't give in to the societal pressure. Oh, you must become a doctor, you must become a lawyer, you must become an engineer. And so you're like, okay, I have to study this subject. Instead of something else, because in my class, there were a few students who, societal pressure, parental pressure, like, we have to study this. They couldn't cope, but so they had to drop out. But when they switched to another field that they're choosing, the one they were really interested in, they excel, top of the class. Yes, so again, it varies person to person. But if you want to study the subject, if you find it interesting, then yes, go ahead.
ठीक है, perfect. So, in regards to chemistry, I'm sure कि ज़रूरत होती है, but do you need to have studied it in O levels in order to pursue it in A levels?
Yes, there's no question about it. You have to have studied in O levels if you want to do it in A levels. If you're talking about from a very technical standpoint, then yes, technically, but your life will be about 10,000 times harder.
Okay, like technically, we get it. You have to study it in O levels, yes. Okay. Yes. So, how did you study chemistry? मतलब आपकी studying strategy exactly क्या थी for this subject?
Studying strategy, like with all sciences, I follow one rule, that is always do your past papers. Always, always, always do your past papers, because they give you an idea of what the examiner is expecting. Always just look at the past papers, read from your textbook. I would recommend, since, I actually read a lot, the textbook corner is over there. So read the textbooks as well, since you can pick up a lot of information from that, but also combine it with your notes. Because the notes that you get in class, some information that's present there is not present in the textbook, and that which is present in the textbook may not be present in your notes. So by combining the two, you get the most fruitful approach. Another factor I would consider is always read the mark schemes, because they tell you what exactly the examiner is looking for and how you need to present it. So if you're doing the past paper, you mark it yourself or you give it to your teacher to mark. Always check the mark scheme afterwards, because that tells you what are the key words, what the examiner is looking out for, and what you need to answer. Other than that, I would say talk to your teachers, discuss with them, do a paper, do some questions, give it to them, ask them for improvements. How can I improve? Since they've been teaching the subject for like what, 20 years at the very least. So they probably have definitely have more experience than me. But that's what I would recommend. Textbook, past
since you
papers.
talked about note taking, notes banane ki baat, so do you have any tips for that?
Tips for notes. Keep your system organized.
Yes,
like
extremely
if I were to
important.
ask, yeah, if I were to ask you, for example, how do you take notes? Like, what would you answer?
Acha, I write down every single thing that comes out of the teacher's mouth, because I tend to forget and I need to revisit over and over and over again. हर एग्जाम से पहले मुझे अपने नोट्स दोबारा खोलने पड़ते हैं. तो ये है कि मैं हर चीज़ लिखती हूँ. बेशक बिल्कुल माइन्यूट डिटेल्स भी हों तो आई राइट देम. और ये कि कोई चीज़ रिपीट हो रही है तो इवन रिपीट भी हो रही हो तो कोई बात नहीं, मैं लिख लेती हूँ. और ये कि ऑर्गेनाइज्ड हो, हर चैप्टर की पूरी आपकी एक नोटबुक होनी चाहिए जो केमिस्ट्री को डेडिकेट की हुई हो. एक आधे पेजेस उधर आधे पेजेस उधर, तो दैट्स द वर्स्ट थिंग यू कैन डू, स्पेशली साइंसेस के लिए.
Yeah, because it becomes very confusing very fast. Especially because if you consider reaction, for chemistry particularly, if you consider reaction A and reaction B, they look nigh identical, but they have different rules and sets of properties follows because they're in different chapters. So keep your notes straight. That's the best advice I can offer.
Exactly. तो अच्छा मादीन, अब ये डिपेंड करता है वैसे आपके पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस टीचर्स के साथ, बट were you using any YouTube channels?
Not really. Alhamdulillah, by the grace of God, I understood the subject well, and my teachers were especially instrumental, as well as my parents, my friends, in keeping me on track. As you know, I came to Pakistan after having done most of my elementary and secondary education in Singapore. So coming here, culture shock. I was like, okay, I have to get used to Pakistan's way of learning, the way how people teach here, how everything goes around, and alhamdulillah, I was adapting well. These are my people. And then COVID happened and we all stuck at home. So, but alhamdulillah, my teachers were excellent, and credit where it's due. It's partly thanks to them that alhamdulillah I achieved an amazing result.
Okay, so वैसे तो chemistry से related इतनी myths नहीं होती, like people say it's difficult and it is difficult. But
It
are
is.
there like actual any myths regarding chemistry when you study it?
Generally in chemistry, I find that there aren't really a lot of myths, because more or less everyone understands that it's a conceptual subject. But if there was one, it would probably be about memorization, that you have to memorize every single reaction that comes in front of you in the textbook, in your notes. Memorize a reaction because you're never going to get it again, or you won't know how to get it. That's one of the biggest misconceptions, I think, since you don't actually have to memorize it. Since as chemistry is a conceptual subject, if you have the concept down, you can just recreate the reaction because you know how it works. So there's not really a lot to do over there. But yeah, I would, again, since they say memorize the reaction right now, sometimes they'll give you an entirely new substance or compound or metal or whatever to put in the reaction. And if you don't know how the reaction works, then again, you struggle because you have no clue. Like whatever you memorize, it won't apply here. That's why I always say have a conceptual understanding, even if you can't remember anything. If you understand the concepts, you can at least score some marks. Obviously, you need to memorize, understand the key terms, the key terminologies, of course. But again, very conceptual. So you have to understand the concept behind it in order to actually answer your paper.
सही है. So any last minute tips or advice for students who want to ace chemistry? or get a distinction like you?
Last, alhamdulillah, by the grace of God. Last minute tips, I would say, not really, since you can't prepare it at the last minute, but it would be this: keep a focus on your organic chemistry. One question always comes from that towards the end side. Obviously, you can't really tell from which section, but sometimes they ask for carboxylic acid, sometimes they ask for alkenes, since they have the most reactions. Other than that, focus on your acids, bases, and salts. Again, another major topic. Usually, one question comes from that. And apart from that, keep your concept straight and your head clear. Because the moment you go inside the exam and start panicking, you're going to run out of time, and that's going to be the end for you. Keep a cool head, keep it clear, revise everything beforehand, know your concept, get someone to quiz you maybe, and if you can answer everything, if you're confident in yourself, inshallah you'll succeed.
Okay.
Inshallah.
I think that's about it for this video.
So thank you so much, Mahdin, for coming and
No
for
problem.
talking
Thank
to
you
us.
for having me.